It's fabulous to be back, and if this garden is anything to go by, we're in for a treat this year, Nikki. This is the Savills garden. It's so good.
It is incredible. Mark Gregory says it took him 3 years to prepare for Chelsea this year, and you can see why, can't you? I mean, you love your cooking. How's that for a kitchen?
That's my dream.
From pot to plate.
I love that. And these trees are stunning hornbeams. You've got them in your garden, haven't you?
I have. They're so wonderful because they give you privacy, but they also encourage the wildlife. And you have them pleached so they sort of keep that shape, which it just feels like, well, we're in a very intimate kitchen and restaurant. Look at the Chelsea pensioners.
They're having a whale of a time. They're really enjoying it.
I know where we're going to be going afterwards. We're going to be joining them, aren't we?
Exactly. And amidst all these flowers, I can see why you love it.
Wonderful. I might say it might be my favourite. Can I say that?
Because it's only one day.
OK, shh, don't tell anyone.
Hold fire. Well, as always, there's loads to see, so it's going to be a jam-packed week, and our team of friendly faces will be on hand every step of the way to guide you through this year's show.
So what have we got in store today? Well, Chelsea wouldn't be Chelsea without our queen of the pavilion. Of course, it's Carol Klein, and she's in search of some garden treasures that you'll definitely want this summer.
Whether you've got green fingers or you're a complete novice, I've got some real crackers for you today. They're perfect for your windowsill, whether it's inside or out. They're pelargoniums.
And our man who knows his way around garden design, Toby Buckland, is here to help you get the Chelsea look for your own backyard.
The gardens here at Chelsea might be big and grand, but don't let that put you off, because I'm here with all the tips you need to transform your space with minimal effort and budget.
And all week we'll be joined by a host of famous faces, and who better to start with? None other than only Dame Joanna Lumley. Now, how fabulous is that?
Fabulous. I love it. But first, it's Monday. It's press day, which means only one thing. It's Frock Watch.
Oh, and we definitely love a beautiful frock.
It's fabulous being at Chelsea. I love the vibrancy, the variety and the kaleidoscope of colour. I've come here today to see some phenomenal gardens.
There's so much happening here, and I think that having something like this, which is so accessible to people, it's really important, and it's also really cool.
I'm getting a sense of empathy. Do you know what I mean? This year I'm getting a sense of empathy for others.
It's always wonderful. We always pick up some inspirations and few plants, a few ideas.
I mean, it's like the best day of the year for me. I love it. I haven't left last year.
It is incredible to actually be here and see it and feel it.
Chelsea is absolutely enormous. The whole site is as big as 8 football fields, and it's taken 8,000 people to create the event. The showground is stuffed full with thousands of plants, some from far-flung corners of the earth. Rachel de Tame is on a whistle-stop tour to soak it all up and share it with you.
I have to say, if my train were late, I wouldn't mind waiting here one bit. We're off on a journey around the world, starting here on the platform garden. And I think it's beautifully planted. Maybe the platforms of the future should be just like this, with plants everywhere. There's a gorgeous glossy tile on the wall, and in front of it, this cotinus, the smoke bush, and those wonderful dark plummy leaves. And then the colour is followed through into the flower there of that geranium phaeum. Really dark, luscious purple. It's a shade lover, so perfect in one of the darker corners of the garden. I feel a bit like I'm plant hunting in this garden, which is called A Letter from a Million Years Past. And it's an evocation of the Jiri Mountains in South Korea. And it's filled with really wonderful plants. A lot of them are natives to that area. We've got things like the Thalictrum, beautiful, soft, mauve, fluffy flowers. And there's also Japanese Szechuan pepper, which also grows in this area. I think it's very special. It's transported me right across the world. This garden is called Feels Like Home, and it's no surprise actually that the designer is from New Zealand, because everything here are either plants that are indigenous to New Zealand or plants that grow there commonly. And it's wonderful. I love that she's used the colours of New Zealand through the planting. So you've got the red there of the callistemon, the white silver like the astelia, through to the black. And then behind me is the silver fern. Now that's the national fern of New Zealand. And it's reflected in that beautiful frond that curls over the water feature there. I have to say, I haven't been lucky enough to go to New Zealand, but I feel like I've had just a little taste. I find myself basking in the heat of the Caribbean. I'm at the Barbados display, and just look at the colour here. I mean the Kimi ginger, so much of that colour. The ornamental banana as well, I particularly like. But the heliconia sexy pink, I think, takes the cake. And it reminds me of flamingos trying to climb a ladder. It's just extraordinary. The whole display is just filled with sunshine. Finally, we find ourselves in Japan with this incredible display of bonsai. I mean, they are just mesmerizing. Look at the rhododendron, how much flower is packed into that. And there are some misconceptions about growing them. They are outdoor trees, they're not houseplants, and many people actually keep them indoors, but they go outside, and there are lots that you can try that are good for beginners. So that's my whirlwind trip around the world. We're going to see more about bonsai later in the week.
Thank you, Rachel, and safe travels. Now, this garden is something you'll all be familiar with. It's very much rooted in the heart of the great British countryside, with a look that inspires many of our gardens at home. Now, it's the Boodles garden, and Tom Hoblin is the designer. It's lovely to see you again.
Thank you, thank you.
Now, is it true that this is going to be your final garden for Chelsea?
Well, I've done 10. This is my 10th one, and I do need a break, but I'll never say never again.
No, because we love you here.
And I love being here.
So I think you'll be back. But this is your third garden for Boodles, your third and final one.
Yes, it is, yeah.
So tell us a bit about how you're celebrating British craftsmanship.
I mean, obviously that was the brief that was given to me, and when I started researching the idea, I realised, you know, we have this fantastic heritage of British craftsmanship.
Yeah.
So I sort of set myself a goal to use the very best artists and artisans and craftspeople that I could possibly find. So, for example, we've got this fantastic arbour made by Chris Cox, and we kind of really work well together. We really
you have a connection.
It was great, and we were sort of sketching all these ideas about how we were going to capture a woodland feel as an arbour, because we sort of needed a building to be able to sort of show off more craftsmanship. So, for example, we got this fantastic bench made by Rachel Chudley, and it's using offcuts from the furniture industry. So we've got quite a good sustainable approach. Even the paving here is all the offcuts. When they cut out a boulder out of the quarry, they cut off the ends and the bits, and this is what this is all made out of. So it's all waste.
It's from Chatsworth, isn't it?
Yeah, from Chatsworth in Derbyshire.
Yeah.
And it's all waste stuff that's made, you know, been using the very best craftspeople. Jake, who made all this wonderful stonework, worked for weeks and weeks and weeks to make this into a beautiful thing. Because in my opinion, craftsmanship is taking something natural and stylising it and refining it into something more beautiful. And that's what I'll try to do with all the things here.
Well, you've done it successfully, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Also, I think what's lovely about this garden is that it really works for people who've got shady areas as well. So you can take some of these ideas.
Yeah, very much so, because this could work in a city garden, because if you think lots of city gardens, you know, small courtyardy gardens are full shade, which is really the same effect as a woodland. And if you can imagine, I've said in my brief that we get judged on that we've got mature trees all around here, so a lot of this, all this planting is shade loving and can easily work in urban situations.
And I'm loving this pool, that sort of the raindrop effect is absolutely brilliant. Now Tom, you won gold last year.
Yeah.
Any pressure, or are you just going to enjoy this moment?
I'm trying not to think about it. Today's the best day at Chelsea because we get to do all these wonderful things and meet these fantastic people. But you've always got it at the back of your mind, what if we don't get a goal?
Tom, you'll always be gold in my eyes.
Thank you, that's very kind.
Now, we promised you Carol at the start of the show. Well, the wait is over. Here she is with a beginner's guide to pelargoniums.
The Great Pavilion is packed with wonderful flowers. But today, I want to shine the spotlight on a plant which is familiar and well loved, but has hidden qualities. These are pelargoniums. Many of us know them as geraniums, but geraniums are a distinct family. They're hardy plants that we grow in our gardens. But in both cases, both pelargoniums and geraniums take their names from their seed heads, which resemble the beaks of different birds. In the case of pelargoniums, it's storkbills. Lots of us know and love these plants, and mainly we grow them for their very showy flowers. What they need is a hot, sunny, dry position. And that's probably because their ancestors actually come from South Africa. Although we appreciate them for their wonderfully brilliant flowers, they have another quality too, and that is their foliage. Often when you touch it, it's soft and felty. And if you rub it, many of them have the most beautiful scents and aromas too. This has to be one of their all-time favourites. It's called attar of roses. It's used widely in perfumery. There's no fragrance of it from here. It's not until I rub its leaves and release the scent from the little perfume glands on the back of the leaves that I can experience this delicious scent. It really does smell of roses. This is one called felicifolium. It means with leaves like a fern. And if you touch this finely divided foliage, it sticks to your hand. If you smell it, it smells like balsam. Now, why on earth should pelargoniums have scented foliage? In the case of most plants, it's the flowers that bear the scent to bring in and attract insects. I think that what we experience as quite a pleasant, interesting smell is actually a deterrent when it comes to some herbivore coming along and really fancying a chomp on them. It just puts them off completely. But as far as we're concerned, this perfume that they bear is an added attraction to this wonderful family of plants. As well as their gorgeous flowers and their highly scented leaves. Many of them have culinary uses too. You can use them in the kitchen to make teas, infuse them in water, or add them to a sorbet, chop them up for a salad. But it's only some varieties that you can use in that way. And this is one of them. It's one of the oldest varieties. She's called Mabel Grey. She's absolutely gorgeous. Look at the shape of those leaves too, but the fragrance is out of this world. Really lemony, very, very zesty. What a brilliant family of plants pelargoniums are. They have so much to offer, providing you can look after them, keep them frost-free in the winter because they won't stand any degree of frost at all. There's no reason why you shouldn't have these in your house, in your garden, year after year after year. What's not to love?
press day is always such an exciting day with famous faces all over the showground. And I'm very delighted to be joined today by actress, presenter and Chelsea regular Dame Joanna Lumley. So welcome to Chelsea.
Thank you so much.
And this is a huge day for you because you come nearly every year, don't you?
I literally chisel it in. The only time I don't come is when I'm actually filming abroad. Otherwise, I always say it's a day I've got to be not available for work because I've got to come to Chelsea.
And we're so lucky to come on a Monday.
We're so lucky to come. I mean, that sounds awful because people will be coming during the week and the excitement. And I've got to say, the beauty of the gardens, I've been asking people, will this last the week? And particularly lilies inside the big tent. They said they're all going to last the week. It's perfect. And today is perfect weather. Slightly overcast, so not boiling hot. A mild breeze, but not a wild wind, and no rain. So it's ideal.
It's so lovely just sitting here, isn't it?
Isn't
Martin
it?
Wilson has done a fantastic job for the RSPCA. He really, really has.
Ravishing.
Encouraging wildlife into our gardens,
Yes.
whatever your garden style. But I'm guessing over the years you've seen a real change here.
In Chelsea, the whole thing has changed because it used to be just competitions for the most beautiful garden. That was what it was. And now it's changed into all kinds of different things with themes and ideas. And you learn so much about all kinds of conditions. For instance, next door is the National Brain Appeal, which is a garden for dementia. Now, you think dementia might be becoming forgetful. Quite often it's people who have just an altered way of perceiving things. So the next door, about seeing things. Some people who can only see things if they move. And so there's a garden full of things that move slightly so they can appreciate it. Things like that. Coming here to the Bernkoos nurseries, which is for the Prince's Trust, and of course it's quite extraordinary, saying the climate is changing, so let's change the way we plant our gardens.
Absolutely.
Let's have plants that can survive in the dry or in the extreme weather, things that can thrive. So don't go boo-hoo, these things are changing. Say, let's move on, let's
work
adapt to it.
with it and think of our environment around us. I mean, do you come here for inspiration? Are you constantly tweaking your garden?
Look, I'm a dream gardener, if you know what I mean.
Go on, what's a dream
Quite a lot of gardening is in my dreams. Because my garden at the moment, our garden at home in Stockwell is gorgeous. It's a long, thin London garden, partly shaded, so that a lot of things which would flourish can't flourish in our garden because we don't have enough sunlight. But we have everything else that you could adore. We've got all kinds of fruit trees, apple, plum, pear, fig, olive, lemon. We've got foxes with baby foxes. People are terribly cross with me about that. They say, don't feed the foxes. This is my thinking about it. Foxes lived here long before people came. This is their home, so to be decent to them. And also, you don't want foxes with mange. I feed wild birds, I feed everything, and so foxes come under that as well. And I love what they've now started to call hardy plants or something. What they mean weeds.
Oh yes,
I
you can't get rid of the weeds this year.
No,
they're not weeds,
but
they're
they're
plants
beautiful.
in the
And
wrong
if you look
places.
at them, I've got anchusa growing up and supporting roses. And the roses seem this year to be even happier with the anchusa growing up amongst and around them. So I think that there's room for everything. The great thing is that every time I come to Chelsea, my eyes open.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm going later to the fauna and flora, which is about gorillas and how creatures, wild animals, must be kept.
An incredible
in
garden.
It's fantastic. And it says, don't go out killing things or encroaching things. If you keep animals in the wild, you'll make much more money. Tourists will come and see them, and then the local indigenous population of people who live around there will make much more money.
And have you had a chance to see the Horatio Garden? Because I know
Horatio's
that's
garden,
very
and
close to
I'm
your
a
heart.
patron of it, and I love it with all my heart. This is the most adorable idea, which is, it's really for spine injuries, but actually it should spread out into all hospitals. It's people who are trapped with long, painful diseases, injuries, which require a lot of surgery and therefore a lot of recuperation. Stuck usually inside wards.
Yes.
Suddenly, the second they can come out and be in a garden, it lifts their spirits, it improves their
It does, and also they can get involved with the garden.
They can become involved in the garden, and it's great for the people who are visiting them. It just restores it. You see, the oddest thing is that although we keep being told it, we must just understand that to go and stand under a tree or to look at flowers, you get better at once.
Yes.
And so every day, even if you're just walking to work, look at the trees, just notice the change.
Take a moment, put your phone
Take
away
a moment.
and have a look.
Put your phone away.
There's so much to see here, Joanna. Thank you
Oh,
so
look,
much
you've been
for
so
joining
patient.
us.
Thank you, I ramble.
Have a what? You never ramble. You never ramble. Have a wander. Go and see
I
our
will.
lovely Japanese designer at the end, Kaz. He'd love to see you.
I'd
An
love
exquisite garden, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Still to come on the RHS Chelsea Flower Show, an event supported by the Newt in Somerset. Has your lawn seen better days? Well, James Wong is here with his guide to transforming it for summer. Chris Bavin gets an invite to a Chelsea First, a children's picnic right here at the show. And back by popular demand, our Chelsea Clinic. It's the place to put your gardening dilemmas to our experts. And in the hot seat at the end of the show is Mark Lane. But first, it's obvious Chelsea is on a huge and ambitious scale, and you might think you need to splash the cash to be able to get a bit of this at home. But do not worry, Toby Buckland is here all week to spruce up your gardens with a little bit of Chelsea magic for a fraction of the price.
My favourite thing in summer is spending time in the garden with family and friends, having food, perhaps raising a glass. And this year at Chelsea there are some fantastic designs all about entertaining. If you've got a slope, you don't have to stick with the incline. You can put in steps, and the steps become ad hoc seating. And if they join up, as they do in this square design, it's like a cross between a stadium and a Roman theatre. You can get loads of people sat across from each other down here, sitting comfortably, and best of all, your garden wouldn't be cluttered with furniture. If you have an outdoor sofa and seat that's just out on its open in the sunshine, there's something about it that's a bit off-putting. Wrap it round with greenery, with cow parsley, aqualegias and shrubs. Well, you create an outdoor room with green walls. Yeah, quite literally, a living room. Of course, the garden doesn't have to be large to be good for entertaining. And if proof was needed of that, well, the Stargard garden is proof positive. It's so intimate. And the reason for that, and it's such a simple thing to copy, is the planting. Again, it's cow parsley, there's astrantia, tall plants already, but plants now raised up in containers to make them even higher and create this outdoor room effect. Then there's the water feature, a piece of timber that's been blackened, but it's the noise that is the important thing. The noise of the water drowns out the sounds from outside the garden, again bringing you into the space. Now, you don't need a water feature like this. Anything that's a little bubble pond that moves that water and makes a sound would be good. If you're after some tips for al fresco entertainment, the place to come is the London Square Community Garden. It's a space centred with a massive terrazzo table. Big enough so should the in-laws pop up unexpectedly, well, they've got a place to sit. Design-wise, it's made intimate because of the steelwork that runs over the head. But you could achieve the same thing with a regular pergola. Just any timber would do the trick. And when you got verticals and horizontals above head height, you got more space for flowers. I think my favourite idea that's easy to steal here is this little green edge around the base of the patio. I know most of us have got a patio, many of us have got raised beds, but very few of us make use of that little thin strip where they join. And so effectively, what this garden has that is so easy to copy is like a living skirting board around this green room. So there you have it, a few simple tips to bring a bit of Chelsea magic to your next garden gathering.
Now, when I'm at the garden centre, it's not just plants I go for. I can spend hours searching the shelves for gadgets and gizmos, anything that will make my gardening life easier. Now, for years, products like these have been launched here at Chelsea, and this year is no different. So if you're anything like me, this next item will be right up your street. Joining me today is Dragon's Den star and Queen of Green, Deborah Meaden, and we're looking at this year's Sustainable Garden Product of the Year 2023 award. Lovely to see you again, Deborah.
Lovely to be here.
Well, you've had a difficult decision judging, haven't you?
Really difficult. It's been a vintage year, so we've had more entries. We had really tough decisions to get them into the finals. And actually, when we were sitting trying to choose the one, I mean, which is great. You know, there's a lot of sustainable products now, which is fantastic.
Why should we care about this award?
Well, gardening is actually a huge industry. There's a lot of gardens out there, and actually even the slightest changes to the way we garden can have a massive impact, positive impact, you know, on our wildlife and biodiversity. You know, we've got the power in the gardens.
So you've picked out a few for us to see now, some of these finalists. What are you going to go for?
Well, I want to show you the kind of breadth of the entries. So this is, you know, this is a thing of beauty. It's a hand fork.
It's lovely. Look at it.
Doesn't it feel beautiful? Looks beautiful. This is all literally offcuts. This is steel. This will last absolutely forever. Now, it's not cheap, but actually, if you look at the cost of it over the length of time, and that's what sustainability is all about, it actually is very cheap, you know, because it will last forever. So, you know, truly sustainable.
Definitely. I love that. What else we got?
Well, this is probably the most sustainable product because this is literally wool, cleaned wool. And you can use it for lining your hanging baskets. It's hugely water retentive. So lining hanging baskets, putting in the troughs if you're planting carrots, potatoes, whatever, particularly in times of drought. And it is literally sheep's wool, clean sheep's wool.
It's like it's so like the outdoors, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's literally like a garden sponge.
It's a garden sponge, that's exactly what it is.
Okay, so moving on.
And this is exciting because we've all got hoses. There are enough hoses in the world to go 3.5 times round the earth. That is a lot of plastic. They're all plastic at the moment. This is the first one that is 60% recycled plastic, and the bit that makes it flexible is actually rubber, which is a natural product. So this is really, you know, this is game-changing.
Yeah.
And we don't think about our hoses. We use what we've used forever and a day.
Well, exactly, and I think a lot of people will be interested in this one. So, winner. Who was it?
Well, the winner, it really reached into me because I bought some wildflower meadow rolls. They came on plastic. So this is the first one to be actually made on a compostable rollout matting.
Yeah.
So, you know, totally recycled compost and completely compostable matting that it goes out on. And we've lost 97% of our wildflower meadows since the war. So, you know, it's an important thing.
Thanks so much, Deborah. And James Wong will be looking at wildflower turf later in the show. Now, one of my earliest gardening memories reminds me of being with my grandmother in her garden. She was so proud of it, and we'd keep it nice and tidy and pick blackberries off the bush to make a crumble. And that's what sparked my interest in the outdoors. So I was really excited to see, for the first time ever, 100 children being put on this year's guest list, and keen to find out what these gardeners of the future think about Chelsea. Our very own big child, Chris Bavin, went to meet them.
Children don't normally play a role here at Chelsea, but this year, for the first time in the show's history, the RHS have invited 100 local school children to come and enjoy this marvellous day. I'm off to see how they're getting on, and I'm told they're about to meet a very special guest. How is it being at Chelsea today?
One of the most exciting things I've ever done in my entire life.
Is it really? So you met the Princess of Wales?
Yes.
What did she say to you? What did you talk about?
We spoke about how it's fascinating and like fun to see how like the food grows, like strawberries, and how it takes time.
Heather, you're a teacher at one of the local primary schools, and do you think today's trip will help inspire the children to get more involved in gardening and horticulture?
Absolutely, I do. Yes.
Who's got a favourite flower?
Me.
Tell me.
Rose.
Oh, excellent.
Daisy.
Lovely.
All of them.
Yes, excellent. Well, I hope you and the children enjoy the rest of your
Thank you
day
very
in
much.
Chelsea, and I'm going to go and have a look at the garden that's going to end up at your school.
Amazing. Thank you. See you
ya.
there. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Harry, beautiful looking garden, and it's been designed with school children in mind. Can you tell me more about that?
Absolutely. So we've been working with the charity School Food Matters, who are the sponsors on this garden. So we were kind of imagining ourselves, right, kind of thinking about those landscapes of maybe Alice in Wonderland, slightly wacky spaces, and the kids have that innate love of nature. So just create natural spaces for them to run around and really get immersed in.
Can we have a closer look?
Absolutely. Come on in.
Wow. This is fabulous. Can you tell me more about this?
So this is a round earth wall. The story behind this really is about food education. Obviously soil is such a hot topic. and a really wonderful thing to bring into education for children.
And this gives you a real good example, doesn't it, of how important it is. Plants make me feel calm and more like myself. I mean, that is the magnitude, that's the power of gardening, which maybe some school children don't have access to.
Yeah, it's just important to be able to give them that opportunity.
I think as soon as you bring school children outside, it just sparks their imagination, which this garden 100% does. You know, I absolutely love it. Stephen, what a fabulous garden.
Thank you. We're really pleased.
This garden has not only been designed with children in mind, but has actually been designed by children and even planted out and built by children.
Completely. We're a couple of special needs schools in Hertfordshire, and actually all the way through from 7 years old, the kids have been involved in growing, from seed, from cuttings. So all of this is grown by the kids, and they are super, super proud, as are we.
What does each different section do or represent?
There are 5 areas to the garden, the 5 senses. There's touch for the woodland area, the smells for the herb garden, the taste for the kitchen areas, and sound with the music.
Well, looking at this garden, I think the kids have done you proud. Good luck with judging.
Thank you very much. Fingers crossed.
My goodness, what a treat for those children. Now, every day this week, Angelica and I will be meeting a host of experts and getting stuck in to give the latest gardening trends a go. I'm delighted that I'm getting my hands dirty first with floristry, and to help me today, I'm joined by florist to the stars and also royals, Simon Lycett. Welcome to the show, Simon.
Thank you.
But in a way, you were here first this morning.
Oh yeah, it was an early start.
For a very important wedding?
Yes, Menage and Clive got married on the RHS and Eastern Eye Garden of Unity.
And how were you involved?
Gorgeous garlands in abundance everywhere.
Which we are going to recreate here. A little bit of magic?
Yes, exactly.
So how easy is it to do?
It's a bit like a sort of grown-up version almost of making daisy chains, and the first thing you need to do is make sure that all the flower and plant material you use
I'm copying you, by the way.
has been given a really good drink in advance, because we're going to create these without any of the flowers being in water. And so prepare your flowers, give them a good drink, and then I'm snipping them off and I'm leaving just a little short bit of stem at the end, which will act as a spacer when we eventually thread our flowers together. So it means we use fewer flowers.
So we're talking of trends. Is this something new? Because you could have garlands in your garden if you're having all your friends around for a barbecue. You might be having a wedding and you're doing the flowers yourself, or you could ask your florist to do it. I mean, is this a latest thing? Is this what people want this summer?
It's a great thing to do. It's also really inexpensive to do. You can use flowers from your garden. You don't need any particularly specialist kit. I've got a really lovely big needle here.
Yes.
You can use thread, something like wool, a bit challenging to get through. You can even use something like florist's wire and thread your flowers on.
And straight through?
Straight through the centre, just being a little bit gentle as you push it through.
So you said, oh gosh, got to be very careful with the needle,
very
haven't
gently
you?
through with that needle, and gently through as you pull your string.
And we've double stringed it.
To make sure.
Is that such a word, double stringed?
I think so.
There we are. And what about colours? Should there be a theme or not?
I don't think there ever needs to be a theme. I love all the colours. As you can see from what I'm wearing, I love all the colours.
So how many days in advance? Oh no, wrong way, that way. Nearly got it
There
wrong.
isn't a right or a wrong way, to be honest.
How many days in advance should you make your garland?
They are relatively quick to make, and they are not particularly long lasting, except that they will also dry out, and that's the joyous thing. So all the garlands that we've made that are hung on Menage's garden are actually just going to gently dry out. And you know how you see the confetti on the path after a wedding?
Yes.
And you think, oh, that's nice, there was a wedding here 3 days ago. Well, when you look at a flower garland that's starting to just dry out a bit, you can think to yourself, oh, that's nice, that was part of a celebration earlier.
I'm looking behind and we've got some fabulous ones with a little bit of jewellery. There's peppers in there.
Yes, you can use fruit, veg, flowers, any sort of ingredients and just build them up. You don't need to have a system. And things like a hollow stem from something like dill here, if you thread that on and then thread your flower on. It acts almost like a little bead as a spacer.
That's
in
not
between.
bad for me. And I've got to ask you, there was a very important coronation just a few weeks ago.
Yes.
And we did see the Princess of Wales wearing flowers in her hair. It was a sort of garland, but it wasn't flowers, but it looked like beautiful diamonds made in a flower design.
Yes, a gorgeous floral garland.
Are you seeing all the brides wanting this?
A lot more brides are wanting it, yes.
Because I can imagine everybody saying, now that's what I want. I want beautiful flowers in my hair, and for the bridesmaids as well.
Like that?
Very nice. So easy to make?
Very easy to make. In effect, you're using one type of flower I've done there. Thread them all together, tie it at the back. The ribbon's just an embellishment.
Simon, may I?
Of course.
What do we think? Does it work?
Fit for a princess.
Not coming off now. Thank you so much. Now, with May almost over and summer right around the corner, there's one gardening dilemma we'll all be thinking about: our lawns. Do we mow them or not? That is the question. Well, here is our guide to ensure your lawn is greener than ever in more ways than one. It's James Wong.
Once upon a time, if you were to mention the word lawn within 50 miles of this place, this would be the only type you're allowed. Neat, manicured perfection without a single daisy, preferably with stripes. And all of this was to demonstrate our ability to have complete domination over nature. Neat, ordered perfection. But times are changing. We're now embracing lawns that are wilder, that are freer, that are more diverse. And this really finds its peak at a campaign by charity Plant Life called No Mow May that does exactly what it says on the tin. You simply leave your mower in the shed for a month. And this allows this incredible mosaic of wildflowers, a mini meadow. When I turned the corner here, I was just totally stopped in my tracks by this lawn. It felt like falling into a fairy tale. And this is lawn, even though there's over 20 different wildflowers dotted through it. You can see these oxeye daisies and red campion, and then just below it, I can see field poppies starting to pop up, clover, yarrow, buttercups, the full works. And the most amazing thing is, something like this is relatively easy to create. You can actually just buy them off the rack in big slabs and lay them out almost like carpet. But if you want a lower cost option, you can just convert a regular lawn into something like this with plug plants. So you take the lawn and you poke little holes in it and you shove baby plants into each of those holes, water them in, and you've essentially seeded native wildflowers into a conventional lawn. Over here, I've stumbled across another alternative lawn that I think is just truly stunning. It's like a pastel paint box just completely exploded with phycelia, with corncockle, with toadflax, just truly beautiful. Now, this is the kind of thing you would sow from seed, and you can actually buy loads of different mixes pre-created for you at different nurseries, or you can even create your own cocktail of different species. And if you get bored with something like this at the end of the year, you can chop it all down, dig it into the soil, and sow a new mix for a different change year on year. It's incredibly creative, it's experimental, and those are not two words that you would normally associate with lawns. And the really wonderful thing is that horticulture is not like politics. You just don't have to pick a given side. Because although I might be team long and lush and natural, if you've got kids that want to play football, or if you want a nice green surface on which you can have a picnic, then regular lawns remain a really practical option. The key message is, whatever type of lawn you have, it's better than concrete.
Well, we're nearly at the end of our first day here at Chelsea, but we've definitely got time for our favourite bit of the show. Yes, it's back. It's the Chelsea Clinic and it's open for business.
Yes, we've got our very own garden expert, Mark Lane, joining us today.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Hello.
Are you ready for some questions?
I am. Yeah, let's go for it.
You're going to nail these. Anne Odroft got in contact on Facebook. She says, my Acer has seeds growing which are dropping a sticky substance. Never seen this before.
Oh, well, this is probably something called honeydew. So this is excreted by aphids when they're actually being harvested by ants. Sounds rather bizarre, I know. Don't worry about it, it's completely natural, but if you're really worried, just spray it off with a little watering cap, you know, spray in a, what do you call it, on your hose.
Yes.
Just spray them off, it won't do any problem whatsoever.
Very good.
There you go.
Craig Williams got in touch on Instagram. He says there's so much variety in native British wildflowers. Which would you recommend for a novice with a very small garden?
Good old oxeye daisy. You cannot go wrong with the oxeye daisy. Really cheerful. That lovely sort of typical white flower with that yellow centre will flower for months on end. Then something like good old foxgloves. We all love a foxglove.
Oh, I love foxgloves.
And of course, cow parsley. Cow parsley will just self-seed everywhere. It will give you structure, give you colour, give you scent, everything you need.
Lovely, lovely.
Now, BBC Breakfast Carol Kirkwood got in contact. She has a question about her roses. Let's have a look.
I'd like to ask the clinic how to deal with black fly. They destroy my roses every year. They start off looking fantastic, and then a few days later, they just have all these holes in the leaves, and I don't know how to treat it.
Black fly is a real problem. Now, I mean, if you're not faint-hearted, go out there with your fingers and literally just squish them between your fingers. If not, again, you could use a hose, just spray them off. But a really lovely little tip, which is really simple, just place a bird feeder near your roses. Every time the birds come down for a little morsel, they'll see the black fly, they'll come down, take the black fly away, and they'll do the work for you.
And that is a better way of doing it,
Exactly.
isn't it? Definitely. And we like to encourage the birds back
do.
into our gardens. And Betty Saunders on Facebook, I have a Strancia major and it's flowered beautifully for 3 years. The plant still looks healthy, but the flowers are flopping and limp. Any advice?
Well, it really depends how it's being grown. So if it's being grown in a pot, then maybe it could be being eaten by larvae, which you don't want at all. So all I would say is take it out of the pot, change all of that compost, give it real lovely fresh compost in there, and that will be absolutely fine. If it's been grown in the ground, then just make sure that you water it well, but you need soil that's really good, free draining soil as well. So just make sure you might want to add in some horticultural grit.
And should you be keeping them going year after year, or do you think you should replace them?
Well, she said they were 3 years old, so every sort of 2 or 3 years you should always divide your herbaceous perennials, and an Astrantia is a herbaceous perennial. So by doing that, it just means you're going to reinvigorate that plant and bring it back to life.
Oh, that was brilliant, thank you. She's got a brand new garden. She's taking notes, aren't you?
I am taking notes.
Good.
Got some wisteria, make sure it was pruned, so that, you know, and all that, so it's looking lovely. Might have to get you to help me.
As ever, thank you very much. That's all we've got time for today. And right, that is it for us.
That's right. And there's definitely a buzz on the showground because there's going to be a royal tour happening very soon, which is exciting.
Oh, yes, we are so excited. And now make sure you tune in later today to see all of that and more with Monty and Joe on BBC Two at 7:30 p.m.
And don't forget, we'll be back here on BBC One tomorrow at 3:45. Put it in your diary with all the news and excitement of Medals Day. We can't wait.
We cannot wait. We'll see you then.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello and welcome to Chelsea. It's wonderful to be back. And Chelsea has become part of my life, really. It's woven into the warp and weft of my life.
Mine too, Monty, mine too. Yes, what an incredible place. And just look at it all from here. I mean, I've had a good look around, but it's still first impressions. But there's some real variety that I love. No two gardens look the same to me. And also quality, very good quality, some really interesting stuff.
Well, I'd go with you on the quality, but I've had a look around, and to be honest, I'm seeing similar things appearing.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to debate this all week long. I can feel this coming. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, it's
Well.
always the same. OK, well, there are 35 gardens this year, so it's going to take us a while to get around them all and debate them all. But we're starting here. Now, this is the RSPCA garden designed by Martin Wilson. And, you know, we're looking down on it. It's a contemporary rectilinear space, and it's got this terrace up here, and there's a hide for viewing, you know, the biodiversity in the garden from underneath. And in the old days, this would have been much more formally planted, but it's the sort of rewilding effect. Now, let's just use that term.
Yeah, I mean, the whole rewilding weeds debate...
Let's not go there now.
...rumbles on. But this garden, and this they've made it very clear, is showing how that you can have a lovely garden, quite conventional garden in many ways, and still encourage a lot of wildlife.
Yes, and I think it succeeds. I mean, we've got layering, we've got the trees, we've got the shrubs, we've got the underplanting of perennials. You know, but there's little bee boxes and bird boxes dotted around, so it's really been nicely thought through. But it's quite a cool space. It's quite chic, isn't it?
Yes,
at the same
and
time?
I think it will bed down masses of pollinating plants.
Yeah.
The one thing that I'm missing is a pond, actually.
Yeah, it's got a rill. It's got a
Yeah.
rill. We've got the sound of water.
Yeah.
A natural pond would be lovely, and we know it's a magnet for wildlife water.
They made the point. Lots of wildlife and lots of beauty as well. And of course, we will be exploring all the ideas and themes in much more depth across the week, and also showing you perhaps what you can achieve from these gardens with a dose of Chelsea inspiration.
Certainly, and it's not just us, Monty, it's all your favourites are here to bring you the very best bits of the show. And with so much to pack in this evening, we best get started.
Well, coming up tonight on the RHS Chelsea Flower Show 2023, an event supported by the Newt in Somerset.
We've got some big guns tonight. Cleve West, Sarah Price and former People's Choice winner Tom Massey, all on Main Avenue. And we're taking a first look at their finished gardens.
The Houseplant Studios are back, and Arit Anderson has inspiration for all our indoor gardening needs.
And it's been a very exciting day on the showground. There's even been a wedding, Monty. That's why I got my hat. But right now, we have a real treat. The Great Pavilion is back in all its glory, and so is our very own ray of sunshine, Carol Klein. Who better to show us around and get us in the mood for summer?
There's plenty in the pavilion to bring out the sun and get us dreaming of the summer ahead. But whilst we might struggle to grow some of these tropical beauties, there's plants galore in here to make the sunshine in your garden all summer long. If you want to turn up the volume on colour in your garden, why not go for some of these Santadisha hybrids? There are all sorts of brilliant colours, things like this Sun Club over here, or Captain Brunello, gorgeous glowing orange, really easy to look after. They're very tender, but on the other hand, they can stand outside from May right the way through to the frost. And you can either store them over winter in their pots, or you can take out the rhizomes and then repot them in the spring. Begin to water from about May onwards, and you should have absolutely masses and masses of colour. A garden full of these is bound to bring you sunshine. If only Morecambe and Wise were here. If your garden's looking a bit drab, or you think it might be by the time midsummer comes, it's not too late to do something about it. Why not invest in a few gladioli corm for a display like this, bringing sizzling colour to your garden? You can still buy corms like this. What you're looking out for is something that's really solid, good basal plate with roots emerging, and a sign of little shoots on the top. Plant them really deep, and you can either put them into pots or into a sunny, well-drained part of the garden. Within weeks you'll see shoots. Within a couple of months you should have splendid flowers just like this. No wonder Dame Edna really longed for people to throw these out of the audience. Aren't they just magnificent? You can always depend on Birmingham City Council stands to sizzle, and this year is no exception. In fact, it's even brighter than usual. It's composed of all sorts of different bedding plants, each one of them contributing brilliant sunshine. But one of the predominant plants are these dahlias, Temptation Red and Temptation Orange. What patience those growers must have had, because all of them have been raised from cuttings. But if you haven't got the time or the patience, then why not grow some from seed? There's a wonderful strain of seed called Bishop's Children, and you can sow that along with tagetes, all the different marigolds, all of those tender annuals in about February. They come on very, very fast indeed, and when your seedlings are up, pop them on individually, and with a bit of luck, you'll have flowers that summer. So, if you're in need of some sunshine, there's a whole host of plants here to give you inspiration to turn up the heat in your own garden, come rain or shine.
Carol isn't the only one giving us a splash of summer colour today, because first thing this morning the gates opened for the grand unveiling of this year's show, and the whole showground was buzzing with excitement.
My wife is a gardener, so Chelsea really is one of our favourite days. It's a great treat.
It's mind-boggling, really. I mean, just the skill and the way that these designers can manipulate a space.
I think what they do here is spectacular. And it's like a dream come true. What they do, they're artists, really. And it's just, around every corner there's a wonder.
So yeah, I brought my folks to come and wander around. It's really special. I like it a lot.
My first time, absolutely loving it. It's just an amazing experience.
We've been having a lovely day out. It's a great place for sons to take their mothers.
I'm a big plant person. I'm sort of someone who keeps on going around going, and would that work now well in a shrub in the dark without any care? Lovely. Can I have that one?
Well, I'm sort of more fruit and veg really, but my wife's a big gardener. She's a garden designer, so she's so our garden at the moment is full of builders.
I do love it. We're lucky to be here and not raining, and on a beautiful warm day actually.
It's kind of not sunny but really boiling, so I'm just sweating in people's gardens at the moment. I went into a shed full of mushrooms and it was too hot.
I haven't left since last year.
Something very exciting happened here today, and a first for Chelsea. There was a wedding on this very garden.
Congratulations, Manoj. What a special occasion. And after the celebration, Adam Frost went to take a look around the garden, and we'll be seeing that later on in the show. Now, this is Nurture Landscapes, one of 12 show gardens this year, and it has been designed by Sarah Price. Now, I've been coming to Chelsea for a very long time, and I'm always looking for something that's going to stop me in my tracks, that's just going to redefine everything that I thought I knew and make me see the world with fresh eyes. And I think this is one of those gardens. And there are three things that stand out on immediate inspection. The first is the colour palette. The colours here are extraordinarily unusual for a Chelsea garden. They're muted. They're pinks and apricots and greys and touches of mauve. And it spreads through from the planting, which is dominated by these wonderful irises from Benton End, with very unusual colours, but it goes through in every single aspect, whether it's the aggregate on the floor, the hard landscaping, the tables, the pots, the bowls, the water features, all of which have been made using recycled waste material and then bound together. And that gives it a sort of constancy and a fluidity, which is really exciting and unusual. The walls are made out of straw bales and then lime rendered and painted. And of course, when you use lime wash and lime, you don't get a consistent colour. It changes. It changes when it's wet, it changes as it dries. Different colours will dry and change at different rates. And combine that with the planting, this palette is so subtle and so muted and yet really strong. The other thing that is very unusual and striking is the confidence to do just a little. There's not too much of anything. The planting is spaced out. The pruning is open. You can see through, you can look through plants, look through branches. You have these wonderful Scots pines pruned to look like a stone pine. And then just touches of richness at the end, the aeoniums at the back, which are really strong but planted into the ground. And that sense of holding back actually adds real power to the garden. Chelsea tends to be such a bustling place, so busy and so much going on. And yet this is calm and poised, incredibly elegant, and I think very strong. And I have to say that I'm coming away feeling inspired, surprised and delighted by seeing this. And I know that this is going to be one of those gardens that every single day that I come back in this week, I'm going to rush here to see it again. It really is that good.
As you walk down Main Avenue, you notice every one of these 12 show gardens this year is completely different. The designers have been set free to tell unique stories, and in some cases, these gardens really do stop you in your tracks. Take this one. It really is a showstopper. This is Transcendence by designers Gavin McWilliam and Andrew Wilson. And Sophie caught up with them a few weeks ago as this incredible feat of engineering came to life.
Gavin, hello. Look at this.
It's classic Chelsea at the moment, so it's calm but nervous anticipation of things turning up.
So this is going to be a very peaceful garden, isn't it? It's called Transcendence.
That's right, yes.
And the story behind it?
It's all about bereavement and about how that being a shared experience and about us trying to create a kind of beautiful and contemplative and uplifting space to talk about that, to raise that kind of conversation about death.
And why did you want to do a garden designed about that?
When my father died, I then went from advertising to doing landscape architecture.
Really?
Yeah. Some of the landscapes around crematoriums are quite depressing, but the spaces themselves should be beautiful. They should be spaces you want to return back to, that should give you some sense of comfort.
This is going to be almost the journey. This is life, isn't it? This
Yes.
is going meandering through.
Absolutely. We've got that central route that goes all the way through the garden to the end here. But within that, you've also got meandering paths that go through the planting. And that's expressing either the direct route you go through life or sometimes the alternative routes you can go through life, because everybody's different. So we've got a 6-metre cantilever, and that's what's going to give you this sense of immersion in the landscape here. I think each piece on the concrete cantilever is 9 tonnes. We can't crane because the trees are directly above us. I think we've got the biggest high-up in the country turning up to lift stuff tomorrow. We're in uncharted territory.
Are you confident?
I think confidence may be not the word I'd use. Ask me in 3 days' time.
Okay. Wow. Gavin, Andrew, it's incredible. It's huge. I can see why you were so nervous when I saw you last time.
Oh yeah, just a bit. When we last spoke, we literally just had a hole in the ground and nothing else. And then since then, the concrete turned up, and look at it now. Fantastic.
It is absolutely enormous though. I mean, you do feel it's slightly precarious standing under here.
It's meant to feel a little bit precarious, but the idea is as you walk into the garden, you're drawn upwards.
We're standing under 56 tonnes of structure, but don't worry.
I know.
The structural engineers were
Are you sure you got it right?
Oh yeah, I'm very happy standing underneath it. No, I mean, they're amazing. They're the guys that worked on this to make it all stand up, so I've 100% confidence in that.
What was it like getting all the concrete, everything in?
We managed to get in without a leaf being touched. I think it's probably one of the most stressful things we've done, ever. I think I've aged.
His mum was relieved when it all went in.
I've slept. I've started sleeping. I'm in a happy place now.
So you're going to have sort of winding paths through here, aren't you?
That's right.
No?
Kind of not pathways. This is a main route.
Yeah.
In lots of ways, this is the common route that everybody has. You know, we're all born, we all live, we all die.
You can still wind through it though.
You could wind through
He wants to wind through
but
it.
it's not a windy path.
You want a straight road, he wants to wind through.
Oh, no, we were through.
I like the diplomacy between you two. Do you get on still?
No. We absolutely hate each other.
Look at this! Planting. You've got a garden.
We've got a garden.
Show me what you've done here, because it's lovely. It's so delicate, isn't it?
There are areas of kind of density of planting, and then the pathways that we were talking about the other day.
No,
the
hang on,
planting
that's
sort
what-
of drops down.
You can wind.
You could-
He didn't want pathways in
No,
there.
no, there are pathways.
He said last time I was here there weren't going pathways. You said there were, and now he says they were always meant to be there, but they were informal. That's called compromise,
Yes.
isn't it? That's very good. That's why you two are so successful. I love the Oriental poppies.
Poppies are amazing.
They're white, they're pure white, and they will flicker all the way through the entire garden.
So they go up into the space beyond as well, so it's all interlinked. We were going to have more trees, and we actually took some out to create areas of light, so we could put in more interesting planting in there as well. And we picked this stone, so it's got all these natural indentations in it, so we should get a bit of movement and play in there.
I can't believe that it's 20 years since your father died.
Yeah.
You two met, you changed your career, you changed your life, and here you are, you've achieved what you've always wanted to do.
Yeah, it's emotional, very emotional.
He would have been impressed, wouldn't he?
Hopefully. I think we've done him proud.
And here we are on the finished garden, and I'm with Rachel. It's come together, this garden, hasn't it?
It certainly has. I mean, from here, it looks really impressive, and
Yeah,
I'm just
it
looking
does.
forward to exploring more.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very simple layout. You got a path down the middle, taking you towards a major feature, and then the other paths, which I know represent different routes through life, going through the planting, but it is simple, so it's all about the structure, the materials and the planting all working together for that goal, and I think it does work. I like the boundaries and the way it ties in with the paving and the lightness of the materials together, and just a few rocks through the planting areas.
Yes,
and then we've got these trees, which are one of your favourites, aren't
Yes, they're an absolute favourite, Gladitia tricanthos.
Yeah.
And they've got this, they're fairly substantial in terms of height,
Yeah.
but they have this wonderful airy featheriness to the leaves, so that the light just trickles down through and you get this beautiful dappled shadows on the ground. I think it's a perfect choice for this garden.
Yeah, shame the sun isn't shining. Cause
I
then
know, we would have seen that.
Yeah.
But weren't they going to use a lot more of them?
They were, almost double the amount, I think, and it would have been way too full and blocky and shady underneath. So I like the spacey, airy feeling of the whole garden, and the
Yes.
perennial planting, is quite low. We've got the trees up there, so actually the middle space as you walk through, this is what we're seeing, and it's all sort of quite open.
You get a bit of sort of change in height here. I mean, they're not dramatically sort of tall shrubs and so on, but the yew is fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Those sort of dome shapes
yeah.
and just repeating through, and that sort of metaphor for life, that you have these things that mark, particular moments in your life.
I knew you'd get that, the deep reference there.
Exactly.
I mean, from a
You
design,
might not, Joe,
no, well,
but
I might
I-
from a design perspective, but rather than just having them uniform, because it's quite a symmetrical layout. Just dotting them randomly with feeling, I would say, through the garden. It adds a lovely rhythm and evergreen structure, which all gardens need as well. What about the colour palette?
I think lovely. It's really beautiful. Lots of pale colours with your layer. The poppy is beautiful.
Yeah, and we are naturally being drawn up to the major feature, this 56-ton sort of cantilevered structure, which is, it's oversized intentionally for the space because it is very powerful and it draws you towards it, which it's meant to do. And then you can hear the water and you see the ripples of the water.
Yes.
And it is quite, you do emotionally engage with it, I think.
Very, very much so. I think they've created an atmosphere here. It's sort of calming, contemplative.
Yeah.
Pretty much exactly what they were aiming for. And I love this snapshot you get through the roof of that.
Yeah, without that aperture, it would feel too heavy. But seeing the trees and having the light come through
and
there.
the sky.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Nitpicking, there's a few plants at the back. It just feels like that's a little bit of an afterthought. It'd be nice if that tied into the plant.
Because this is so good.
Yeah. And it is good.
Wonderful.
In amongst the nurseries and plant specialists of the Great Pavilion, the Florist of the Year Awards is taking place. And this time the theme is bins and lampposts. Now that might seem quite a tough ask, but actually people have taken to it with huge originality and skill. So here we have a lamppost and the plants swirling elegantly around it. I like this one too, particularly at the back, where you have a bin and then cascading out of it, not rubbish, but glorious flowers spilling down to the ground, and the whole thing supported by a framework of brambles. Now, obviously, brambles are very much part of the theme that you see outside in the show gardens, where you have reclaimed materials, and we've talked about weeds, we've talked about wildlife, but also we've got installations here that are full of the richness you might expect from any floral design. I love the way that they've used imperial fritillaries, for example, and the ranunculus. So you have these wonderful oranges and purples growing out of a bin. And as well as the floral displays, we've got installations. The two are sitting side by side, so you have a really dramatic installation dripping with water with seagrass on here, wonderful mossy ones over there. It's worth walking through them, just absorbing the scale and imagination that's used. And two things I really like about this is, one, that there are an awful lot more of British flowers being grown for cut flowers. This is something that is obviously environmentally very friendly, and also really good to have native flowers included in what is essentially a very artificial setup. And also dried flowers are being used, and they can be recycled. So lots going on here, but all in tune with the whole spirit of the show. Now, someone who's always got a keen eye for design is Arit Anderson, and she's been to take a look at the innovative indoor gardening on display in the Houseplant Studio.
Our love of houseplants is certainly not fading. Last year, 1 in 3 of us bought a houseplant. That's on average 2 every month. And it's the 18 to 24-year-olds who are the biggest spenders. This year, there are 6 studios here at Chelsea, packed full of inspiration to show us the very best in houseplant design. Imagine this as your work or play space. Fantastic studio, especially when the plants are centre stage. And what the designer has done here is given us this showcase living wall of tropical plants to show us how different plants need different light levels. What's really clever is that they've put all of the variegated leaves toward this end of the wall where there's more light. And as you come down, the leaves are getting darker and more solid, and that means that these plants require less light. Many of these plants start their life on the jungle floor. It's going to be much more shady. So in our homes where the light levels are lower, you can be sure that these plants are going to survive. Now, if you want to carry on with that jungly theme and bring it outside, there are a couple of those plants that live normally indoors that can cope with a little bit of shady shelter. Things like this Tradescantia nanook, or these chlorophytums. You could mix them in with some ferns and have them kind of sheltered near to the home. And the great thing is that all of the tropical plants in this studio have been grown here in the something a little less traditional. I think the inspiration in here is really pushing the boundaries. This is where you can take houseplants to another level.
What the designers have done is using a clay-based substrate planted into it, things like this frothy asparagus, and then taken driftwood and stone and sand to create this really impactful art piece. If you've got house plants and are feeling a little bit more confident, then push the boundary, think out of the box, and maybe you could end up creating something like this.
I'm really pleased that houseplants are getting a bigger footprint in the show, because the truth is they are the biggest thing in gardening over the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't have any outdoor space at all. They can only grow indoors. Succulents are very trendy.
You're right. Aeoniums popping up all over the place.
Yeah,
Echeveria's here and Echeveria's there.
And they're holiday plants. You can go on holiday, leave them a couple of weeks. Don't need any watering at all. Well, we told you it was a packed show, didn't we? And we still have all this to come on the RHS Chelsea Flower Show, an event supported by the Newt in Somerset.
Now, Francis Tophill will be taking a look at the latest planting styles on display at the show this year.
Gold medal winner Adam Frost casts his design eye over the RHS feature garden and meets up with its designer Manoj Malde.
And we've highlights from the royal family visit earlier today.
But first, royalty of a horticultural kind in the Great Pavilion. Claire Austin is just one part of a floral dynasty stretching back for decades. Returning after a 7-year absence, we were lucky enough to catch up with her on the build-up to the big day.
When I'm gardening, I just love burying myself into the border and listening to the bees, and it's a lovely time to just relax. This is the Kerry Vale, just comes up from the Welsh coast and just drifts on and disappears, and you get wonderful rainbows, which we have actually in the distance. I'm Claire Austin. Together with my husband Rick, we run Claire Austin Hardy Plants. We grow anything herbaceous and anything perennial, which includes bearded irises and also peonies. We moved here in 2010 and I started to create this garden. I can't grow some plants because the rainfall's too high, but the majority of perennials absolutely love this sort of climate. The plants in this garden are twofold really. One, my own pleasure, because I absolutely love gardening, but secondly, I grow them to see how they perform. It's a sort of catalogue, a live catalogue of plants. I trained as an illustrator. I only came into gardening when I joined my father's rose business. This year is my 40th year in the trade. I love my garden, absolutely love it. I keep seeing these little vistas of, for instance, in the back there we have the, which was planted by my mother, this cherry, and then underneath the woodland plants. I gained a lot of inspiration really from my mother, who was sort of a relaxed gardener. The weeds would grow and she would allow things to seed around. This is my spring garden. A lot of the plants here, or almost all the plants, are herbaceous perennials, which means they die down in the autumn and grow again in spring, and they flower quite early. This is a Geranium Phaeum Alex Pink, which I hope I will be taking to Chelsea. Then we have Centuria, which are perennial cornflowers, and this is Centuria montana carnea, which is a lovely lilac-y pink. And then the little blue flowers are Brunnera. This is the field that we grow our irises, mainly bearded irises, and some of the peonies that we sell. The soil in this field is very rich, but it's also quite free draining. I think the irises seem to benefit from that, and peonies will grow anywhere on the nursery. All the irises are grown here. We pop them up in September, and in April I put them inside into a cold, unheated polytunnel, and cross the fingers. So this is where we grow our irises to bring them on for the Chelsea Flower Show, and these are the ones that I'm encouraging to grow. So this is a Siberian iris. They grow in most kinds of soil, as long as they're not very dry, And to see if they're going to flower, I just feel the bottom of the stem. I can't feel any flower spikes at the moment. That doesn't mean they're not going to flower because they tend to pop up very quickly. Now, this is Alchemilla Cream Dream. It's lady's mantle is the common name. It's a plant I found in the garden. It'll grow happily in a shady spot, and it's really nice for brightening up the garden, and mixes with yellow, which is often the colour of the moment. This is a geranium I found in my mother's garden and named it after her. It's called Patricia Josephine. It's just a pink one, but it almost pales to white. So I've had it for years. Running a nursery is thoroughly enjoyable, and I have to thank my father for educating me in how to do it. My father was David Austin, one of the leading breeders of English roses. It seemed natural to join the business, although he was also a farmer, which was his primary occupation for many years. So being involved in horticulture and gardening in the countryside seems very natural to me. I've been going to Chelsea for, now it's the 40th year, and the last time exhibited was 7 years ago. So this year we're having two smallish exhibits. One will be purely of bearded irises, and the second one is spring flowering perennials. As always, my brother will be exhibiting, David Austin Roses will be exhibiting, so it's quite a family affair really, and I'm quite looking forward to that. I don't see him that often. I'm slightly apprehensive about Chelsea. I'm not sure whether the perennials will be perfect. Some will have gone a little bit too far, some won't be open enough. Hopefully, cross fingers, we'll have enough to fill the stand, which is always a worry.
Claire, lovely to meet you. I've got you as a rose in my garden, a climbing rose, so it's so nice to meet you.
Yeah.
And very floriferous you are too.
And we're disease resistant as well.
Well, I can see that. Now, you've got your iris looking, well, they are perfection. And there's a lot of iris out in the gardens this year, and I'm a huge fan of iris. How easy or difficult is it to get them? Because there's good years and bad years at Chelsea with iris. This looks like a good year to me.
Well, it's been quite difficult because we had such a cold April and May, and everything just stopped growing, or March and April, and it just then suddenly went quickly.
Okay.
So it's been really taxing. We started off with 900 irises, and it's whittled down to just 200.
Because that's the proportion that you're growing to get the good ones.
Exactly, absolutely.
Okay, and I mean, they all look great to me. Do you have any favourites here?
Well, I'm very pleased to get Dusky Challenger into flower. It's the dark, rich, dark petal, very large petaled
the
iris.
Sexy purple.
Absolutely.
It's one of my. It's very popular. Oh, everyone loves it.
It takes a long time for it to come into flower because the petals are so big, but it has a gorgeous chocolate scent, which is something I love
I'll
about
have to go and have a little whiff later.
Will do.
And the light blue one, another tall variety. What's that one?
That one's called Nestuca Rapids, and I love it because the flowers open all the way down the stem, so you get complete colour, not just at the top of the flower.
Right, okay, so it's just, lovely.
Yes, it is beautiful.
And your brother David's here, waiting in the wings. Hello, David.
Hello.
Meet your sister.
Hi, sis.
I love that you meet here every year.
We do, yes.
I mean, is there sort of, horticultural rivalry between the two of you at all?
No, I think we compare notes.
Did you say, well, I've got another gold?
There's room for both of us, I think.
There is. Yeah, we do totally different things. So I am totally perennials. He's roses. End of subject.
You are roses big time, and we'll be visiting you later in the week.
Yeah, I will add that I was here before her. I came in 1982.
Here we go, he started it off.
First David Austin Roses stand here in the market, 1982.
And when was your first year here?
1983.
Oh, he pipped you by
in 1 year.
But you're the older brother, right? I said the right thing.
Yeah, you did.
No, she's big sister.
Well, listen, it's lovely to see you both. Fantastic. Earlier in the show, we had a sneak peek at the RHS Feature Garden, which was the venue to Chelsea's very first wedding. It's been designed to be a community garden, but Adam is here to take a look at the design principles on show that we can all use at home.
Chelsea Flower Show is full to the brim with beautiful gardens. But what lies beneath that beauty? Gardening is changing. We have to be more sustainable, think about the environment. So the materials we choose, the plants, and of course the way we build is becoming so much more important. This is an RHS feature garden and it's designed by Manoj Malde. And it's bright and definitely colourful. This is not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but if you look closely, it's that colour that is holding this garden together. Look at that. That is a braille post. They relate to the fence and the pergola. This garden breaks into 3 main spaces, softly done at that, but at the end there's a quiet area. Give me just time to reflect. Here, it's about entertaining. At the end, you've got the arbour providing that dapple shade, but also the opportunity just to get some climbers growing. In front of me, that surface is totally permeable, so as it rains, it goes down and it soaks back into the ground, so there's not any runoff. And then we look at the planting. There's one group of plants that have popped up, and that's the annuals, the biannuals, and the short-lived perennials. First of all, you think, well, that's not really sustainable. You're going to be planting them all the time, but actually, in reality, these plants come up, they seed. The seed goes back into the ground. Whatever happens that winter, they will come up the following year. So that's a plant that I've definitely used as a go-to. Manoj, before we talk about this garden, you got married.
I did get married.
It's quite a beautiful place to get married.
Yeah, and what an opportunity to design my own wedding venue as well.
Exactly. I'm looking around and talking very much about sustainability, and I can see here, you know, you've got permeable surfaces, but what other features have you got in the garden about sustainability? Because I know you've got community, but what about the sustainability?
So all the timber has been sourced from sustainable sources, so they've all come from managed forests. The large limestone slabs, we've been very sustainable with the waste, because what we did, rather than chuck the waste away, we've had them cut into these small slivers, these sets, and we've used them back in the design of the garden.
And you talk about the recycle as well, and the old, you know, the oil tanks, you've decorated them.
That's it. So what I did was I wanted to upcycle old oil drums, and I put out a post that I was seeking artists to come in and individualise each drum, and that's how communities come together.
That's right.
You know, it is this space is for them to share.
When you think about this, the whole garden is about sustainability.
It totally is. It's a community garden, and by bringing different communities in, what you're helping them to do is create support networks for themselves. So this garden is a totally sustainable garden for the community.
Yeah, which is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely.
Enjoy married life.
Thank you.
All week, Adam will be sharing how other designers at Chelsea are using new and innovative ways to create their gardens this year and give us all ideas that we can apply to our own gardens at home. Now, one firm favourite back for another year is the designer Tom Massey. In 2021, he won the BBC RHS People's Choice Award for the Yeo Valley Garden with its organic credentials. This time, he's putting insects at the front and centre of his garden design for the Royal Entomological Society.
Insects really are the tiny engines that run the world. They do incredible work in our gardens, in pollinating our food, in keeping the world moving, really. I'm Tom Massey, I'm a garden designer, and this year at Chelsea Flower Show I'm designing a garden for the Royal Entomological Society, and they have really been at the forefront of insect science since 1833. So insects are really important in our gardens. You know, they pollinate our plants, they decompose waste, they do all sorts of services that we don't really think about. And also they're food for larger species like birds, for bigger mammals, for all sorts of wildlife. They are really vitally important. So insects even exist in the soil. You know, there's thousands of insects that live underground and do all sorts of work improving the soil, taking nutrients down into the soil, you know, really just doing so many things that we don't even know about. The bigger picture for us as gardeners is without insects, our gardens would look very different, very desolate. You know, our gardens would disappear. So today we're at Thameside Nature Reserve, which is part of Essex Wildlife Trust. And the aim of today, I suppose, is to find inspiration for the garden at Chelsea Flower Show. So this is what's referred to as a brownfield site. And it is a former landfill site, which is quite amazing, really, when you look at it now. You know, it's covered in scrubland, there's all sorts of habitat. You can see in the background cranes, sort of old industrial architecture. This has now been transformed into this nature reserve that can support so many different species of plants and, by turn, insects. So I'm not an insect expert. You know, I'm very interested in insects, but really my specialism is landscape and plants. And what I'm here to really look at and see is that relationship between the insects and between the plants. So this is hawthorn, and this is a really typical example of a plant that would start to colonise scrubland. And hawthorn is one of the species we're going to use at Chelsea. But you can see that, you know, the structure, the form, the shape, just about to bud as well. So by May, these should be in full bloom. So this is a red dead nettle, and it's really interesting looking. You've got vetch here. It looks like a grassy meadow, but when you actually look into the detail, there's so many different species all coexisting in this really biodiverse matrix of ground cover plants. I've invited Ashley Whiffin, member of the Royal Entomological Society, so we're going to go and explore, see what insects we can find, and she'll help identify what we find too. I think this is actually really interesting, you know, aesthetically. You've got all sorts of different colour, all sorts of texture.
I love it because I just want to get stuck in and look for things, and I kind of imagine that that's how an insect feels, right? Like, oh, this is perfect. Like, there's so many different places for them to hide.
So what have you got in your tray, Ashley?
I've just been searching through this decomposing wood here. We've got a few pill bugs and some centipedes.
But it's still really interesting, you know, how much life is just in even this tiny pile of dead wood that most people would just ignore. Is that an insect, actually, in there?
That is a really good spot, Tom. That's a click beetle. They're associated with this kind of deadwood habitat, predating on other invertebrates in this area, feeding on the wood as well, helping break down that organic matter.
Is it better to have wood like this that's lost all its bark, or, you know, wood with some bark on it? Is there a kind of specification for the best type of dead wood?
Ideally, you want to have this stage because that bark is providing little cracks and crevices and basically shelter.
You could imagine that, couldn't you? You know, insects crawling in there, finding a home under that bark.
Absolutely.
And that's really good to know. So we'll look for wood that's got bark still on it to include at the show. So, the garden at Chelsea is a landscape that is really inspired by this kind of brownfield site. So you've got different types of substrate from crushed brick and sand and rubble, lots of native species like the hawthorn that we've seen here. And there's this large insect eye lab. So the microscopes in the lab allow insects that have been found on the garden to be identified and then enlarged on this huge screen here. So that connects to the microscopes. So it'd be really interesting to see, you know, whether our garden, I suppose, is more covered in insects than others. I really hope to start to get people excited about insects. We as gardeners are really important to insects. We really need to implement habitat, just create spaces that allow insects to thrive, because without insects, we are in serious trouble. There's so much to take inspiration from here, from, you know, this kind of landscape here with the dead trees in the water, to the bee banks, to the piles of concrete and crushed brick. I'm really inspired now to translate this into a garden at Chelsea Flower Show.
There's no question that although that landscape is doing wonderful things and it's really interesting, it is a bit bleak. It's quite a stretch to take that and turn it into a Chelsea show garden. But Tom achieves it. He achieves it, I think, incredibly well. Now, there are a number of ways he does this.
To start with, he's been very generous in the area around the building. It's almost like woodland, so you do have the hawthorn in flower. There's a sense of woodland and intensity of planting. And then I'm rising up quite a steep ramp. By using different levels, it's immersive. You feel that you're part of the garden as you look in. There's a pond. Using the industrial waste, there is this sense of it being in the corner of a wasteland, but actually it works as a pond. The planting is generous. There are pollinating flowers, there's cover. There is this sense that it's an interpretation of a pond that could be in any garden. But then as you move away across, on this side, we have very different type of planting. It's exposed, it's hot, it clears out. This is planting for really sharp drainage, really hot sunshine. And so Thomas has confidence to vary it, not to try and put all the eggs into one basket. And then above it, we have this sculptural form of the dead oak. There is a dead oak standing by the pond, and here it's sliced up. It immediately draws your eye, and yet really useful for insects. Tom, did you find it hard to take the inspiration and translate it into a garden?
I think it was, it's been a long process, so sort of 18 months of designing and thinking and really trying to take that brownfield inspiration and turn it into a garden space. I really didn't want to just, take the literal representation. I wanted to show people that we can use waste materials, we can, elevate deadwood, we can artfully arrange these kinds of materials to create amazing insect habitat.
Do you feel that gardens are a central sort of element in preserving our insects, or is this just an add-on?
No, I think gardens are essential. I think as gardeners we need to come together. I think it's so easy to be overwhelmed or feel impotent, but 30 million gardens in the UK, gardens that equate to an area the size of Wales. If we all come together, if we all start to use waste creatively, if we start to plant for pollinators, create habitat, have a small pond, have these spaces that insects can inhabit, and they just use more sustainable materials, we can really start to make a big change.
And you have this extraordinary building. Tell me about that.
So the dome is inspired by a compound eye. The iridescent glazing is that kind of amazing iridescence that you get on insect shells. So the space is designed to be fun, to be educational. We're going to have 100 school kids coming through very shortly.
Will you be doing experiments?
We are. We've got microscopes. There's an aphid under one, a ladybird egg under another. We're going to be using the sweep nets to capture things in the planting and really see what comes to visit at the show.
Well, we will come back and see that. But I think the garden's great. Thank you very much. Now, habitat creation and wildlife-friendly gardening is only one of the emerging trends at Chelsea this year, and it's certainly not excluding others that you will find here. And here is Francis's guide to the colours and planting styles that I guess that we will all be wanting in our gardens very soon.
At the forefront of horticulture, the Chelsea Flower Show is where we all come to see the new and emerging trends in the gardening world. And of course, it's about the overall design, but really it's all about the planting and how those plants have been used to hold the space together, create an atmosphere, and also how they're used to define the style of the gardens. Having been here for only 24 hours, I can already see that there's a really overwhelming theme of a certain colour scheme at Chelsea this year, and that is greens, whites, and then these pops of magenta. Now here, you can see they've really used that well, and it's a small space, so it just goes to show that even those of us with small gardens can do something like this. There's lots of different kinds of whites used throughout this garden, things like Achillea millefolium here, but this year, that's all been added to with this magenta. It's a kind of bold, dramatic addition. And it gives a sort of sense of faded glory. Classics like Circeum, lovely thistles that work through everything. And it's just something that I've seen all over the place at the Chelsea Flower Show. And this garden, even on a very small scale, keeps its colour scheme simple and epitomises that. Something else that I won't call a new trend, but maybe is seeing a bit of a resurgence, is the shrub. It's such a resilient thing to use in a garden. I think the reason for that resurgence is partly because the extreme weather we've been seeing. Shrubs that can have deep roots are much more resilient to climate change. They also provide habitat for wildlife, nesting spots, and even some produce beautiful flowers, so like this azalea, amazing viburnum here as well. So there's so much versatility, and rather than having all the shrubs at the back, as is tradition, this year they're being brought out into the sunshine, into the front of the borders. They're also much lower maintenance than lots of herbaceous perennials. So if you haven't got a lot of time, shrubs could be your answer. One thing that you can't fail to notice at Chelsea this year is the weeds, or wildflowers, depending on your viewpoint. But I hesitate to call it a trend because that sort of implies it's here today, gone tomorrow, where in actual fact, I hope this is more of a sort of rethinking and a retraining of the way that we see these plants, and hopefully will stick around for some time. We all know now how valuable these species are to our wildlife, but what's more challenging to us as gardeners is to accept that they may have a value for us as well. Whether it's edibility, so things like sorrel, plantain, there is a use for some of these plants. And there is an aesthetic to them. Look at this hawkbit with its beautiful yellow flower. Now clearly the aesthetic of weeds all around Chelsea has been fully embraced this year. But now we have to work out if we can do it in our own gardens. But I can tell you from experience that growing weeds is actually a very challenging thing to do. So they may look like they've just appeared here, but an awful lot of work has gone in to making these gardens look the way they do.
Now, if there's one designer who's known for pushing the boundaries, it's the creator of this thought-provoking space, the Centrepoint Garden. And after 7 years away, I'm pleased to welcome back to the show Cleve West. Cleve?
Hi, Joe. You all right?
Lovely to see you. Why have you come back?
Well, I didn't really want to come back, to be honest.
You would say that.
But I'd sort of taken with Centrepoint's approach, and it's a charity, and they had funding from Project Giving Back, so it was a no-brainer at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, it's a fabulous garden. People are really talking about your garden.
Good.
A lot.
Good.
So the thought-provoking aspect is definitely working. What's this garden all about?
OK, so it's a very literal take on homelessness. So we've got a demolished house, we've got a fallen tree, which are really strong metaphors for being fragmented and displaced and having your life turned upside down. So it's as simple as that, really. And we've got nature sort of healing all the scars of all this.
Because it feels very nostalgic to me. You know, there's something, it's sort of somewhere I used to play when I was a kid, or an abandoned site.
Exactly.
But and that connection with nature was just sort of so immediate.
Yeah.
How has it been interpreted? I mean, what's the feedback you've been getting for this garden?
Yeah, people are relating to it. I mean, the hearth is like the centre of the house. It represents warmth, love, security. We wanted to make that a feature, that's why you got these strong views. But yeah, people are relating to it in a big way, which is interesting.
And you've got these nest boxes, sculpted by Johnny Woodford.
Yeah, they're great, aren't they? And we've had to block them up. We don't want birds nesting, otherwise we won't be able to take the garden down. But happily, that enables us to talk about the fact that homeless people are stigmatised by landlords, so they find it very difficult to get rented property. And also 1 in 10 properties in this borough are empty. So
shocking, isn't it? Really.
Yeah. And we've also got...
There's a soundscape, right?
There's a sound, yeah, the soundscape which evokes the memory of a family that once lived in this property. And we've got the mural, which has got 120,000 dots, which represents each homeless person in the UK, each young person.
And here we are at the front of the house. So this part, this Victorian style part, this would be the house, which has now been completely taken over by nature. And some of it's, you know, areas that were gardened, and a lot of it's just self-seeded wild plants.
Exactly. This is typical of an urban front garden in London. But we've got all sorts of weeds like Herb Roberts, Sticky Willie. It's all that sort of thing that's going on here, which is showing how biodiversity and nature is coming back in and repairing everything.
Yeah, and what has the reaction been to your garden?
People, so far, everyone's saying they love it, but I want to stand about a few paces back when the public come in to hear what people really think.
You know, it's one of those gardens, you are going to get a reaction. I think it's genius.
Good, thank you.
Well done.
As the pinnacle of all flower shows, Chelsea has always been a firm favourite with gardeners and royalty alike, and this year was no different. There was quite a stir on the showground when the royal family arrived to take a look around earlier today.
It's been a long time since His Majesty has walked through these gates at the Chelsea Flower Show. The last time he was here, he was a prince. Now, 8 years later, he is returning as King Charles III, accompanied by the newly crowned Queen. The first garden the king visited was inspired by a mountain in South Korea. It was designed by Ji-hae Hwang, and the king clearly liked it. You've had so many famous people in your garden today, you didn't know who anyone was, except the king. Was that wonderful? Yes. Oh, boom, boom, was your heart, is that what your heart was doing?
Very special.
What's new?
The king. Not many people hug the king.
Why?
Why? Because he's the king. That's very special.
As Prince of Wales, he was for many years patron of the Samaritans, which is why he chose to visit Darren Hawkes on his garden for the Samaritans. After all this work, what does it mean to you to be visited by the new king?
I mean, it's a huge privilege. We took real interest in the trees that we've got here. We spoke about the need for serenity and calm spaces to talk and listen, which is what this garden's all about.
The king has spent a lot of time talking to the designers this evening, getting right into the gardens, like this one, designed by Sarah Price, inspired by the artist plantsman Cedric Morris.
It's just always wonderful when you're talking to someone who understands plants. He loves art, he loves painting.
And the sun has come out.
The sun has come out.
The Queen is also clearly enjoying herself here at Chelsea. She has stopped at every single garden on Main Avenue.
Queen Camilla came in and the first thing she said is, "It feels so calm." In fact, she said, "Actually, you can leave me here."
Oh, did she?
Which is lovely.
Well, having a king visit Chelsea, that's the start of a new era, isn't it?
It really is,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Something different, eh? Well, I can't wait to see what else is coming. It's already looking like it's going to be a wonderful week, isn't it, Monty?
And tomorrow, of course, is the big one, because tomorrow is Medals Day.
Yes, there will still be a lot of nervous people out there waiting for their results. And what about Best Show Garden? I've written my prediction.
I haven't.
Have you?
But I am very clear, and this year I'm going to be right.
I'm not looking. I've already done my one.
And
it'd be interesting to see. I can't remember who got it right last year. We might actually have the same one.
I tell you what, if I'm wrong,
yes,
the judges are going to need a good talking to, because...
Oh, I thought you said if you were wrong, you might buy me a drink.
No, steady on.
No
guys.
chance of
Steady
that.
on. Well, OK, that's signed and sealed. So let's see how that pans out tomorrow.
And Monty, it's your favourite part of the show. I know you love this bit. It's the return of Ask Monty and Joe. To kickstart us this year, we've got a very special question.
Why can't I grow delphiniums, lilies of the valley and dahlias? I buy them every year and I put them in and they don't love me. What am I doing wrong?
Well, quite a series of problems there. Quite many. But let's break it down. Delphiniums, notorious for being eaten by slugs and snails when they're young.
And Lily of the Valley, I've never had any success with them in London because, slugs and snails, and they like sort of damp, shady conditions, which is where they hang out.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So I think that would account for those two. I think dahlias, there's a tendency to put them out too early.
Yeah.
And they don't grow, and therefore they get eaten by slugs and snails.
And this year, it's been cold till late.
So I would say pot them up, grow them in a protected place, a windowsill, a greenhouse, whatever you've got, plant them out after Chelsea.
That's it. Chelsea Week is the marker for tender plants, I would say.
Absolutely. And the nice big plants. And plants don't get eaten if they're growing strongly. It's those early days when they get eaten.
Yeah, and with the other two, I'll maybe put a bit of grit over the top and just try and get them going as well.
Well, that's you sorted, Joanna. I hope that helps. And we love to hear from all of you. So the details of how to get in touch with us are on the screen, and we'll answer as many questions as we can. I think that's just about it. Don't forget to tune in on BBC Two at 8 o'clock tomorrow night to see if we, or at least I, have got our predictions right. So until then, good night.
Good night.